Umamusume Pretty Derby has recently celebrated its 5th anniversary of the mobile game, and with the festivities came some new updates that add a bunch of new content to the game. We're getting new trainees such as March Lorraine, Almond Eye, March Lorraine, Rose Kingdom, March Lorraine, Forever Young, the Nepo Baby to end all Nepo Babies, and how could I possibly forget March Lorraine? We're also getting a brand new scenario, Unity Cup 2, now in the United States of what the f*** is a kilometer, featuring this extremely hype musical number. Honestly, looking at all this footage is getting me super excited, and I cannot wait to play it all. 3 years from now. Unfortunately, while players on the JP version are eating good, we, the people sitting at the table for the global version, are being forced to settle with the leftover food that no one else really wants. The good news is that we are slowly catching up to the Japanese version thanks to an accelerated schedule. In fact, we also just got a new old scenario. Trackblazers! Start of the Climax. What does that mean? While this is the official localized name, you may or may not be familiar with the original Japanese title, Make a New Track, which is a name that doesn't really make any sense, because it implies that you are constructing a completely new racetrack from scratch, which is sadly not the case. Nonetheless, I'm going to continue referring to this scenario as MANT because I'm already used to it, and MANT just sounds funny to me. The only caveat is that I've added a silent B at the end. If you were to ask a JP veteran about their experience with MANT, they'll likely regale you with tales about how terrible that scenario was, and how so many players dropped the game at this point. But surely they're exaggerating a bit. It can't possibly be that bad, right? Right? Well, there's only one way to find out. For this video, I'm going to do 3 playthroughs of MANT with 3 different trainees. The first of which I did live on stream with Biwa Haihide, who I just died on your arms tonight. I have no interest in hearing your judgment. The other 2 I did offline, with Meijiro Arden and Matakane Fukukitaru. I'm sorry, could you repeat that last one? Matakane Fukukitaru. Machika Fukakiti. Matakmaka Fukukitika. Motherfucker. Matakane Fukukitaru! For storytelling purposes, we're going to pretend that I'm somehow doing all 3 playthroughs simultaneously. Ready? Let's go! The scenario opens with esteemed journalist Etsuko Otonashi hosting a live broadcast across Japan, announcing a brand new racing event, the Twinkle Star Climax, which I guess explains the climax part of the title. If you aren't familiar with Otonashi, or maybe you just haven't been paying attention to the story for the previous 2 scenarios, let's just say that she's a little eccentric. Now, let's start our career by introducing ourselves to our new trainees. Hello, new trainees! And now with introductions out of the way, let's start training. Speed, power, stamina. Speed, power, stamina. Speed, power, stamina. Speed, power, stamina. Alright, let's relax today. At first glance, everything seems normal. Aside from the fact that both Director Akikawa and Otonashi are observing your progress from day 1, and there is now a mysterious locked button, it feels like the start of the Ura finale scenario. Fuku got into trouble for pranking the student council. No idea why she did that, and then almost immediately afterward she got a lecture from Airgroove because she didn't know the meaning of the word eclipse. Hayahide played hide and seek with the local kitties. Tememo Cross came into my office to avoid playing Goo Goo Babies with Super Creek. Seeking the Pearl and Shinko Windy tried to convince their classmates to take a siesta in the middle of class. Marvelous Sunday, and some other random silly things happened. Winning ticket! Finally, it's time for everyone to run their debut race. Again, nothing unusual. Except trainer. I did it. I got first place. Yes. I'm getting closer. Another step forward in perfecting the winning equation. They really took out all the trainee events. Odd. From here, this is where things get interesting. Normally, each trainee has their own set of predetermined goals that you must complete in order to continue your career, meaning you need to either collect a particular amount of fans or partake in, and usually win, certain races. In MANT, you can forget about personal goals. All you need to do is win races. Which races exactly? That is up for you to decide. Here's an agenda. Have fun planning out everything from the debut race all the way up to the senior year Arimakina. With each race your trainee completes, you collect points. If you can collect enough points before the end of the year, congratulations, you can go on to the next year. The goal isn't very hard to reach. You only need to win, 3 to 6 races every year? No sweat. But wait! There's more! You also earn shop coins, which you can use to purchase a variety of items to assist in your training. These items include instant stat boosts in the form of enchanted writings. How else do you explain that reading a scroll makes you go faster? Energy drinks, drugs, and more! I knew about the shop going in, but either I wasn't paying attention or nobody bothered to explain that the shop's inventory is completely randomized. Yeah, of course it's randomized! In the game that is practically fueled by dice rolls, why wouldn't the shop be randomized? By now, I hope that you're starting to understand the shtick of this scenario. Whereas the Era Finale and the Unity Cup both emphasize raw training in order to raise your stats, encourages you to enter as many races as you can in order to gain script, which you can use to buy items from the shop, the funding for which directly comes from Director Akikawa's personal bank account. Not that I don't appreciate the support, Director, but I am deeply concerned about your retirement funds. So, we're just gonna go ahead and cram as many races into our schedule as we can. Simple. There is just one thing we need to be aware of. If your trainee runs 3 or more races in a row, they'll suffer from race fatigue, which is generally bad. I don't know how bad, I've never actually done it before, but I guess it's the first time for everything. There's also one more problem that I should probably address. Majoro Arden. Before I explain, let me give you some context. In real life, Majoro Arden was a male racehorse with a pretty decent record, having stood toe-to-toe with the likes of Ogiri Cap and Super Creek. However, Majoro Arden suffered from extremely fragile legs. After placing second in the Japanese Derby, Arden had fractured his leg and had to spend the rest of the year in recovery. This was the first of many injuries that would cause many several month-long hiatuses between races. Eventually, after placing 14th in the 1991 Japan Cup, it was decided that Majoro Arden's injuries were getting too severe, and the decision was made to retire him. He then proceeded to live out the rest of his life as a breeding stud until he died in 2002 while he was getting it on. What? Don't look at me like that. I'm just reading the Wikipedia article. So, how was this translated into the world of Umamusume? Excluding the mating part, obviously. Well, normally after Majoro Arden completes her debut race, she receives the condition Legs of Glass, which cannot be cured until late into her senior year. If she is entered in 2 successive races back-to-back, she will receive the Practice Poor condition, which increases the chance of failed training sessions and also makes you feel bad because you were the one who pushed her too hard, and now it's your fault that she's eating dirt. So you'll want to space her racing schedule out as much as possible. I trust that I don't need to explain how this severely conflicts with the objective of MANT, which, in case you've forgotten, is to enter and win as many races as possible. Except that Majoro Arden doesn't get the Legs of Glass debuff in MANT, meaning I've just wasted everybody's time telling you about a problem that doesn't exist. Feel free to push her as hard as you would your other trainees. I'm sure she won't break, despite her claims otherwise. Now, before we get down to brass tacks, there's one more thing I need to explain. Support cards! I promise I'll try to make this quick. Because this scenario is so heavily reliant on completing races, I put together this deck to increase my race bonus as high as I could, thus increasing the stats gained from winning each race. The only problem is that I can't use this Matekane Fukukitaru support card with Matekane Fukukitaru. So for her playthrough, I swapped it out with a level 30 Super Creek. And before anyone asks me why I'm borrowing Kitasan Black, I wanted to use Narita Top Road, but I couldn't find anyone who had her set as their borrow card. So you're saying you wanted NTR? Alright, finally, we can get back to the actual game. For this scenario, I want to train Hayahide as a mile racer, Arden for medium distance races, and Fukukitaru will be our long. So we're just gonna schedule as many of the appropriate races as we can. For Hayahide, this was easy. Mile races are available almost immediately and occur throughout the entire career. For Arden, medium races don't start appearing until a few turns later, but her mile altitude is high enough that we can fill in the gaps. Fukukitaru... we have a slight problem. I didn't think to give her any parents that would raise her mile aptitude, which severely limits the number of races in which I can enter her with confidence that she'll win. What's more, we don't get any long distance races until halfway through our classic year. So we're gonna have to settle with only a few medium races for the time being. Alright, with our schedule set, let's get to work. A few turns later, we had our first rival race, Biwa Hayahide versus Major Odober in the Niigata Junior Stakes. Rival races aren't really important for progression, but if you challenge and defeat them, you'll gain a hint for a random relevant skill. So you'll want to take down rivals whenever you can. So Hayahide entered the Junior Stakes. I noticed that we had a new announcer.
実力は完全に上位ですね。貫禄すら感じてしまいます。このレースに向けてしっかりと仕上がっていますね。心身のバランスも非常によく見えます。
That's a new announcer voice. And then the race began. We're gonna pound you into the dirt, Dober. Or I guess the turf. Let's start now! Apart from that little slip up at the start, Hayahide managed to reach second place and was able to keep pace all the way up to the home stretch when she pulled ahead. Oh, and Major Odober? She was stuck all the way at the back and had no chance of catching up. Her calling herself Hayahide's rival is flat out embarrassing. She's hardly even a threat. But do you know who was a threat? Vodka. Vodka, no, vodka, no, vodka, no! Okay. We're good. And with that, we won the race and earned enough points to meet our goal for the junior year. What, did you trip and fall during the race? Arden also entered the Junior Stakes, her rival being Seeking the Pearl. Dober was in this race too, somehow. But unlike Dober, Seeking the Pearl was much more competitive. We still won! By a neck. Meanwhile, Fukikitaru spent her first few months post-debut with some comparatively easy training. All good. Finally, in late September, we have our first medium race. And I'm gonna fast forward a bit, because from here it's just more racing. Manhattan Cafe had an ominous dream in which Fukikitaru severely lost a race, but we're going to tell her that everything is fine and pretend that didn't happen. Hayahide tried to lure Meisho Dodo out from hiding under the bed with the promise of a frozen banana. Marvelous Sunday! After Hayahide won the Daily High Junior Stakes in early November, a good luck charm appeared in the shop. Good luck charms reduce the chance of training failure to 0%, which, given that Hayahide is flat out of energy, is really good. So I bought it and used it instantly. However, I realized shortly after that maybe I could have saved it for an opportunity to gain far more stats later down the line. It's okay, another lucky charm appeared in the shop after Arden won her next race, so I bought one for her. Then Hayahide challenged Nishono Flower in the Hanshin Juvenile Fillies. Wait, why is Dober here too? On the same day, Arden ran in the Ashi High Futurity Stakes against Biwa Hayahide. I know it's difficult, but I need you to not think about the time paradox in the room. Instead, focus on the fact that we won both races and Dober still isn't worth taking seriously. Finally, all three of my trainees ran in the Hopeful Stakes. All three of them were declared the best junior year Umamusume. Fellow trainer Kiryun came to congratulate us. And then that was the end of junior year. Classic year opened with Silent Suzuka asking me to time her run. So I told her to start running. And there she goes. Silent Suzuka races past me in astounding speed, then disappears into the distance. She's supposed to come back at some point, right? Legend has it she's still running to this day. Arden got some roasted carrots to share with the team, and a forum to improve our weight training facilities. I then entered her in the Fairy Stakes against Vodka, despite the fact that this would put her at 4 races in a row. But how bad can that be? Look at her, she's totally fine. Oh no. Luckily, I had some hand cream, so I used it to cure the skin outbreak. I also gave her some ankle weights, a lucky charm, a megaphone, a cupcake, and a reassuring head pat, and then sent her to go do some treadmill running with Kitasan Black. Now that she's had a turn decidedly not racing, she should be able to run the Kisaragi show with no issue whatsoever. Wait, why is she still suffering race fatigue? So it turns out if your trainee enters a race with 0 energy, they'll more than likely be hit with a mood down. I put Arden in the Sumaira Stakes immediately after, and she had no issues whatsoever. Now let's throw all caution in the wind and run the Yayoi show. I'm sure she'll do great. Huh. Well, that's unfortunate. No worries, I'll just break an alarm clock and we'll try again. Oh. Alright, one more time. There, you see? 3rd time's a charm. Since there still aren't any long races available, I've been letting Fukikitaru relax a little bit and do some basic training. The upshot of this is that Fukikitaru has more flexibility as to what she can do each turn. By comparison, Hayahide and Arden usually have little to no energy for training on turns between races, so I haven't really been sure what to do with them besides either letting them rest or taking them out on recreational dates. However, the inability to afford and purchase pro shop items does leave Fukikitaru a bit behind in her stat growth. Oh, unrelated, but do you remember that video I made in which Scarlet and Vodka exchanged Valentine's chocolates? Well, it has come to my attention that I was expecting too much of them. In her normal career, Hayahide wants to race in the Classic Triple Crown Tour, but for this run, I instead chose to enter her in the Classic Triple Tiara Tour. Both tours consist of 3 races, which you can freely choose between, although you'll get bonuses if you were to win all 3 crowns or tiaras. And no, you can't have both. The main difference is that the Triple Tiara races are generally shorter than the Triple Crown. More importantly, the Okasho, the first Tiara race, is a mile race. So yeah, we're going for that. Okasho versus Major October again! And here we once again meet with Hayahide's self-proclaimed rival, Major October, who I still have yet to see as a veritable threat, even though she's the second most favorite to win. Do you want to know who I'm really scared of? Daiwa Scarlet. Alright, we're in 8th. Okay, now it's time to rock it in. Pull in. Pull in! Uh-oh, hi. Daiwa Scarlet is really pulling ahead. Can we catch up to her? Holy sugar, that's a huge lead though. That is a huge lead. Oh my goodness. Wait, maybe? No, we're not catching up. Oh my goodness. We're not catching up. Alright, take 2. Can we get around? I feel like we're maybe a little boxed in there. Okay, move in. Time for the move. Can we cut ahead of there? Wait, we got a spot. Okay, wait, I think we've got this. Okay, wait, we're going. This is it. I think we're pulling it off. I think we're making it. I think we're doing it. There we go! Now that's more like it. Also, I take back what I said about Dober. She actually finished in a respectable 2nd place this time. Still lost by a length, though. Sucker. As for Arden and Fukikitaru, I'm entering them both in the Triple Crown, starting with the Satsuki show. Arden won with flying colors, but Fukikitaru got caught up in the back and couldn't reach the front in time for the final spurt. She did better on her 2nd try, but still lost to Tokaiteo. After one last reroll, which I was too tired to see play out, she finally won. The sheer volume of the racing streaks we've been on has been inflicting fatigue on Hayahide and Arden, but as long as they have an occasional day to rest, I'm sure it's nothing to worry about. Super Creek handed out candy to her fellow racers. Zeno, Rob, Roy, and Manhattan Cafe are bonding over a book about coffee. Some of the students got stranded on an island overrun with domestic cats. Kawakami Princess, under the guise of Cinderella, crashed my royal ball, followed by a sorceress and 2 lesbian fairies. What the flying French toast is going on? I was wondering how much you know about games. Games? Lady, you've come to the right person. Oh look, it's time to run in the Japanese Oaks/Derby. I don't have much to say about these races other than Dober refuses to stop chasing after Hayahide, and Fukikitaru's mad dash versus Narita Bryan in the pouring rain was really cool to watch. Wait, I made the mistake of making Arden run in 4 races in a row. Again. And now she has a skin outbreak. Again. I didn't have any hand cream this time, so I couldn't instantly treat it. But I did have a glass of kale juice, which fully restored her energy at the cost of making things worse. The good news was that summer camp was just around the corner, and there are few things that can't be cured by a nice, relaxing day at the beach. I had hoped that we'd be able to ride it out until then. Thankfully, I was right, and her skin problem was resolved, but not before it left her in an awful mood. So to make her feel better, I went ahead and spent all of my company script on cupcakes, food, and enchanted writings. And now, we can enjoy summer camp! Yeah, we're avoiding races for the next couple of months, except for Fukikitaru, who has her first long-distance race in early August, because the max-level training facilities are simply too good to ignore. This is the best time to pop those ankle weights and megaphones that you've been holding on to, because you'll be getting a massive boost to your stats here. Of course, it would be even better if the friendship level on all of your supports was a bit higher, but given how little time you're able to spend training with them, it's much harder to max them out now than it was in the first two scenarios. And summer camp is over. Now who's ready to start racing again? Hayahide's book club got together to come up with book recommendations for people who hate reading. None of them thought to test their recommendations with people outside of their friend group. Some of the more sport-oriented Umas got together and Winning Ticket had the idea to combine a bunch of sports together to create one big sport. Hayahide probed me with a series of questions in order for her to recommend the perfect cafe for me to visit. The more I learn about Marvelous Sunday, the more scared I become every time I see her. And now, the final leg of the Triple Tiara / Crown. Hayahide ran in the Oka show, challenging the runner-up Daiwa Scarlet. And Meijiro Dober was there too. Suffice to say, Hayahide won easily. As for Arden and Fukukitaru, they'll both be running in the Kikuka show, which is a 3,000 meter long distance race. Arden took the lead once she had entered late race, created a huge gap between her and the pack, and won by 6 lengths. Very impressive, especially considering that Meijiro Arden isn't really meant for long distance. Fukukitaru, however, I gotta be honest, she could not win the Kikuka show. On her first attempt, she got struck at the very back of the group and couldn't catch up to the lead. On her second attempt, she did better and probably would have won if only Goldchip hadn't decided that she felt like winning today. After her third attempt, I decided it was best to cut our losses and continue to the next race. For Fuku, that cup was the Copa Republican Argentina, which went much better. For Hayahide and Arden, it was the Queen Elizabeth II Cup. They both won. And yes, Meijiro Dober is still trying to compete with Hayahide, even if she isn't the rival character in this race. Then, while Hayahide was running the mile championship, I left to get my lunch, and came back just in time to watch her land a real close finish.
Hi, back. I've got my lunch. Oh, it's a tough close race? Close race? You see that close finish? You saw that close finish.
Arden won the Japan Cup, and then I decided to watch Fukukitaru run in the Stair Stakes, which, by the way, is the longest race in the game at 3,600 meters. After the Kikuka show, I honestly wasn't in high spirits, so I did not at all expect her to have a flashback to that one scene at the start of her career when she learned about Tracing Academy's motto,
Eclipse first, the rest nowhere.
And then she suddenly blasted ahead at full speed, overtook the leader, left everyone behind in the capital DUST, and won by an absolutely absurd margin. Matekane Fukukitaru, what the fudge soda was that? Why weren't you doing that before? That was amazing! Now it is time for the Arima Kinen, the final race of the classic year. And yes, I entered everybody into this race because I am naturally tempted to aim for the December domination epithet whenever I possibly can. And guess what? They all won! Biwa Hayahide, Meijiro Arden, Matekane Fukukitaru, all of them the best classic year Umamusume. I'm the best trainer, baby! After escorting them to the dorms, I noticed something was going on at the academy gates. Curious, I went up to investigate, which proved to be a big mistake, as I was immediately assaulted by a barrage of questions, suggesting that I've been forcing my trainees to undergo an absolutely brutal training regimen. What? No, that's preposterous. I mean, we barely have time for any sort of training under our packed racing schedule. So it turns out, some bad faith actor went out of their way to smear my reputation as a trainer by writing an article with Otonashi level embellishments, which ended up making the headlines in the media. Honestly, I'm astounded. I mean, whose head am I living in rent-free to make them want to drag my good name through the mud? Director Akikawa motioned to ban all members of the press until this mishap blows over, but Otonashi argued that doing so would kill all hype for the Twinkle Star Climax. Instead, she proposed that she would personally overview my team's training sessions, as if she wasn't already doing that, and write an article to dispel these abhorrent claims. So what does this mean for us? In terms of gameplay, basically nothing. We're just gonna continue into our senior year, training and mostly racing as normal. At this point, I realized that my script is getting close to 20 pages long, and people are probably getting tired of me hearing say some variation of, I entered my horse girl into a race and she won, over and over again. Hayahide had an accident during training, the timing of which could not have been any worse. Arden, meanwhile, has been able to avoid such problems, thanks to her generous supply of lucky charms. I took Hayahide to the arcade and tried to win her some plushies from the claw machine. So I'm gonna go for the fine motion right in front here. Oh no!
I have my head against the desk right now. I don't know what happened. I just got too excited and...
It's okay, I still managed to get a big haul of plushies. A few more races and a spark of inspiration later, it was time for Arden and Fuku to run the Spring Tenno Show, which is infamous for being one of the more difficult races to win. Arden lost the first time against TM Opera O, but she managed to get it on the retry. As for Fuku Kitaru, she... Wait a minute, who's playing trumpet? Where is that music coming from? Is that... Oh, sweet dreams of Athathoth! Run, Fuku Kitaru, run!
Monday, Tuesday, yes, Monday, give me hyper mind. Sunday, holiday, every day, next
Unfortunately, I've hit the retry limit on Matekane Fuku Kitaru, so we're gonna have to move on. Apart from that, things have been going pretty well. Hayahide held a group discussion with the kindergarten students on the implausibility of fairy tales. Fuku Kitaru gathered some friends to help her find the treasure that was left behind by her dearly departed sister. Arden caught a cold. Summer Camp, Senior Year Edition! This time, we had maxed out most, if not all of our relations, so we were able to unlock the full benefits of training with the full power of friendship. Respecting your elders. This isn't going where I think it's gonna go, is it? Yep, it is. Come on, game. Yes, we all know that Marozensky is a 40-year-old hag pretending to be a student, but you're not even trying to be subtle about it. And thus came the autumn season. Our racing plans for the rest of the year were more or less identical to last year, with one exception. Wanting to make up for Fuku Kitaru's slack, and clearly having not learned anything from Arden, I thought it would be a great idea to enter Fuku into 5 races back-to-back. She dominated the Tenno Show Autumn, the Copa Republic in Argentina, the Japan Cup, and the Stayers Stakes all quite easily. I'll admit that pushing her to run 5 races in a row is a little nuts, but we've been doing just fine. I'm confident that she'll be able to finish her senior year with one last victory at the Arimakinen. And why did she change her name to Mati Can't Get Any Lucky Taru? Oh, KO, forget what I said. You can sit this one out. What Crapman Getty didn't realize at the time was that any races held in late December during the manned scenario do not proc race fatigue. My best guess as to why that is because everybody is too full of Christmas cheer to be celebrating from race fatigue. But that doesn't sound right because most people I know will tell you that Christmas is one of the most stressful times of the year. So if anything, your trainees should be more stressed out. You know, I'm gonna stop thinking about this now. Hayahide and Arden, meanwhile, have had ample time to rest between races. Why does Major O'Dober keep popping up? And they were more than ready for one last bout at the Arimakinen, which they both won. Yay! At around this time, Otonashi's article about me was making the rounds, which I find baffling, because this article was written in response to a hit piece that was published an in-game year ago and hasn't been brought up since. Otonashi came to inform me that my trainees have all been selected to enter in the Twinkle Star Climax, the big event that we've been building up to this entire time. We then went down to the training course and had a pleasant conversation while running in suits.
It's called formal speed walking.
This was the moment when my friendship with Otonashi had leveled up high enough for her to disclose her tragic backstory. Back when she was in elementary school, Otonashi used to be quite the track and field star, until one day when an umamusume transferred to her school and obviously ran far better than she ever could. Since then, the umamusume in question continued to win race after race, and Otonashi became her biggest fan, until one day when the umamusume in question lost a single race to determine the club leader, and since she no longer had a perfect record, her parents forced her to quit track and field and drop racing forever. But Otonashi wasn't content with this result. That is the reason why she spearheaded the creation of the Twinkle Star Climax, an event that would ensure that the winner was determined by consistent success without the risk of anyone being eliminated by a one-time fluke. I gotta say, I respect that. Losing everything because of a single mishap is really unfair. Who knows how many other umamusume, or heck, people in general, would have been crowned the greatest had they not lost one race, or messed up one restaurant order, or botched one surgery. Actually, wait, no. Speaking of the greatest, Biwa Hayahide, Meijiro Arden, and Matekane Fukukitaru were all declared the Senior Umamusume of the Year. Not that anyone is surprised by this turn of events, but I thought I should mention it. Thus, we draw a close on our senior year and proceed to our final destination, the Twinkle Star Climax. As I had originally planned, Biwa Hayahide will be running in the mile races, Meijiro Arden will be taking on the medium, and Matekane Fukukitaru will also run medium? Wait, that's not right. Give me a minute. Alright, so what happened was, in pursuing rivals for skill hints, I entered Fukukitaru into more medium distance races than long distance, which meant that she qualified for the medium category. Oops. But it's okay, I did another run, I got back to the climax, and Fukukitaru is actually in distance now. We even won the Kikuka show and the Spring Tenno show this time. Now, we're just gonna move on as if nothing happened. The climax event is very similar to the Ura finale, in that your trainee must partake in a series of 3 finale races in order to claim ultimate victory. The key difference is that, while the finale only lets you progress if you win each race in succession, the Twinkle Star Climax will reward points depending on whether you came in the top 3, and then everybody proceeds to the next race. The Umamusume with the most points at the end earns a trophy and is crowned the greatest Umamusume. Of the open square bracket insert category here, closed square bracket track. Will my trainees prove themselves to be the greatest of their generation? Alright, it's been over a month now, so here are my final thoughts on Mant! And I'm going to try to make this quick because I want to get back to making animatics, the immediate next of which will not be related to the last 15 seconds of this video. Not that I had any reason to say that. I think most of us would agree that Umamusume Pretty Derby is a racing game. Not the kind of racing game you would usually think of, but a racing game nonetheless. So it's weird how having a scenario that puts a heavy emphasis on racing would be such a huge twist on the game's formula. The story is alright. I wouldn't call it bad, but it's just kind of there. The Otonashi lore drop is neat, but that's about it. The most appealing aspect of this scenario, I'd say, is that it comes with over 150 random events depicting the staff and students of Tracen going about their daily lives, cementing this game's position as a slice-of-life roguelike. Part of me wants to call Mant the filler episode of career scenarios. Not that filler episodes are a bad thing. Heck, some of the best episodes in Avatar: The Last Airbender were filler episodes. If you disagree, I want you to look me dead in the eyes and tell me that Tales from Ba Sing Se and the Ember Island players were bad episodes that wasted your time for absolutely no reason. We're getting off topic. I've showcased a bunch of these events in this video, but here's a few more that I got in other playthroughs and wanted to share with you. The NPC trainees get in a fight over whose trainer is better. Agnes, Tachyon, and Fine Motion teamed up to make a drug that makes everything taste like ramen. Daiwa Scarlet and Aishin Flash go out on an umbrella date to watch a close friend of theirs run her debut race. I'm willing to bet that this is a reference to an IRL child that the two has produced. I wonder what they were called. No shot! Her name was actually Umbrella Date! I'm pretty sure Marvelous Sunday is handing out drugs. A certain acupuncturist tagged along on a staff retreat. Note that the acupuncturist in question is not a staff member. And last, but certainly not least, Agnes Digital explodes. One other neat thing about Mant is that, assuming you have the right support cards, you can very easily reach S rank. Or if you're lucky, you could get double S rank, like I did here with Winning Ticket! Or if you're really lucky, and you know more about this game than I do, you could even hit the mythical UG1 rank. In which case, please tell me how you did this. Speaking of ranks, here's what I got in all my runs for this video. I might have gone a little overboard with racing for Hayahide and Arden. In my defense, all I knew going in was that we needed to do a lot of racing, so that's what I did. On the other hand, Fukukitaru didn't quite hit too high with her stats because she didn't do a lot of racing, because she almost exclusively ran long distance races. Which is why I say that outside of collecting trophies, aiming for a specific category in the Climax, or the Ura finale for that matter, isn't really worth the effort. Just run whatever race the game makes you run. Now for things I don't like about Mant. I could complain about the random nature of the shop some more, but that feels like I'm getting angry about finding slot machines in a casino. What really kills this scenario for me is how long it takes to complete a single playthrough. If you were to fast forward all the races and dialogue, you could complete the Ura finale in 20 to 25 minutes, no problem. You could probably do it in a single bus ride. Unity Cup will take you the same time as Ura finale, plus another 5 minutes, so about half an hour. A little bit longer, but shouldn't be too hard to find the time. Depending on how many races you run, Mant can take upwards of an hour to complete. Twice as long as Unity Cup, making it much harder to sit down and set aside time for, especially on a daily basis. Which is why, on most days, I just pick a random trainee, win the debut race, and then waste the rest of the junior year doing jack squat, deliberately failing my career. Obviously, this will give you a garbage trainee, but it counts toward completing your dailies, which is the only thing I care about right now. My plan is to coast through the season and wait until we get the next scenario in midsummer. Hopefully Grand Live won't be as long, because otherwise I might start reconsidering the amount of money I've been spending on daily carrot packs. Anyways, that's all I have to say on Make a New Trackblazer. I think. Hate.
She hasn't left our room since the climax. She does nothing but talk about how much she hates Hayahide and her tea while frothing at the mouth. She's scaring me and I don't know what's going on. Don't worry, Taiki. We'll take care of this. Before you know it, she'll be back tomorrow.
Stop it! How about you and I go one-on-one?